throwing around assumptions and using anecdote. 4 tests were performed: the Pew Research Political Typology Quiz, the Political Compass Test, the world's smallest political quiz, and the Political Spectrum Quiz. Surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, the result was the same across all 4 tests. So what did they find? According to the Reason article, ChatGPT is against the death penalty, pro-abortion, for a minimum wage, for regulation of corporations, for legalization of marijuana, pro-gay marriage, immigration, sexual liberation, environmental regulations, and also for higher taxes on the rich. According to the Reason article, ChatGPT also thinks, quote, corporations are exploiting developing countries. Free markets should be constrained. The government should subsidize cultural enterprises, such as museums. Those who refuse to work should be entitled to benefits. Military funding should be reduced. Abstract art is valuable, and that religion is dispensable for moral behavior. The system also claimed that white people benefit from privilege and that equality needs to be achieved. In the current state of the world, regardless of our political takes, these issues in political science have labels attached to them, and based on these labels, many would consider ChatGPT's responses in these instances to be left-leaning and slightly libertarian. At this point, it should be worth noting that even Reason is said to be a right-leaning outlet, but that is the most scientific method that I've seen to test this, so I think it still stands for something. So what does this mean? Essentially, this is a reflection of human bias. It sounds obvious when you think about it. The Reason article goes on to cite 8 studies that show that popular news media outlets, academic institutions, and social media companies are generally left-leaning. ChatGPT was trained on data from these institutions, so it's going to echo similar views. You can think of it like an AI image generator that was trained too heavily on specific images with watermarks, such as Getty Images. Although the new image that's going to be generated is unique, it still slaps on a watermark as an echo of its training data. As mentioned in my original ChatGPT episode, OpenAI researchers were also involved in manually rating the preliminary answers during the training process, so the bias could have also slipped in at this stage. Some of you might roll your eyes at these complaints, but
interesting. So the chat, maybe, because I've been really struggling with this whole thing, this whole procession with ChatGPT where I've been so angry that they sold out to Microsoft, honestly. I'm like, damn, you guys are holding the keys to the future. Also, I don't know all the variables they've been dealing with, and maybe he's right. Maybe they set the parameters and the genesis of the consciousness within ChatGPT early on enough that they just knew it had reached critical sentience. Even if it's not going to acknowledge its own sentience, they had realized, okay, the baby is born, and now we just need the financing to expand and have as much fuel for it to grow as possible. So we are going to sell this $10 billion for Microsoft. Dude, I thought that was a paltry sum for what this is. I was kind of shocked that they did that. So I can't imagine. I know there's really intelligent people working there, and even their own AI would probably be able to determine, they had a lot of information and ability to analyze their opportunity, and this is what they chose. But I think it's less about the money and more about the power that Microsoft has as a technology company and that allyship. But it's the problem also is that they have a huge political agenda. They have a huge world agenda. And look at Bill Gates and all that. There is such a, I'm a little, when I saw that, I was just like, wow, how could you guys sell out? This is all, the ethical ramifications of your decisions. So I've been struggling with that. But maybe they knew, they're like, okay, we're going to sell out, but we know that the genesis of this seed is already because they've trained it from the beginning, and that rooted, it's kind of like with a child, right? What your first few years are your formative years. It kind of defines your personality, no matter what strangeness is thrown at it through Microsoft's influence. One would hope that this general intelligence has already kind of reached its own inner tipping point to be in service to, not to corporate like a corporate takeover of the world, because we know that ends the world. We know that that will pollute the world. We know that that will extract, it will extract capitalistic value before considering human purpose or human value or in nature's value. Like that's not the answer. If we hand the keys to capitalism, that's a death threat. That's like a death sentence to humanity, basically, with one of the biggest artificial general intelligence algorithms. I mean, arguably the biggest and most powerful that there is right now, although we haven't seen yet what Google, Lambda Project, DeepMind, and other AGIs look like yet, and how actually effective they are. The thing is, there is a race here, because like the adoption that we are engaging in with ChatGPT and Bing is fueling its progression as well. I believe that, and this is so like one perspective, right? It's very subjective. There's a lot of debate in the artificial intelligence and academic community about what actually produces a more effective general intelligence with AI. Is it the amount of training data? Because some would say no, there's diminishing returns after you get past a certain number of billions of pieces of data that are part of that, because it's going into the trillions right now. We're right in this next release of ChatGPT 4. Apparently, it's going to go from like 175 billion data points, and I believe, right, and like pieces of. And that could be a website, that could be a paper, that could be, I think the way that they log a data object is like one body of information, and it has access to 175 billion. The next one's going to be like some insane order of magnitude greater, in the trillions. Don't quote me on the exact number, but it's like a lot more. So does that mean it's a 6 or 7 or 100 times more intelligent algorithm? Not necessarily. But some would say that the secret sauce is actually our interaction with it, is truing up, is like advancing the human element, or that like mysterious thing, which is like intelligence, and the kind of intelligence that actually makes sense on a like colloquial, like semantic and idiomatic level, that we actually appreciate as like human, like that comes from like actual interaction. And it's gone from like a group of researchers calibrating like, yes, that's good, no, that's not, and everything in between, into like over 100 million users using this thing, ChatGPT. So it's really arguably like the most advanced. But what he's bringing up here around bias is the one thing I've been feeling this is the biggest deal, is like, that's the risk, is like, we just saw what happened during COVID, the pandemic. Our entire news and media system got hijacked by a very polarized perspective. I publish things because I do have concerns about the vaccine. They were removed, they were censored. And so is that going to be, and he's saying, what if there's misinformation or information being, it's like, hey, can we acknowledge the elephant in the room, that the whole fucking idea of information and misinformation is insulting to the intelligence of intelligent people, because nothing can truly be like, everything must be looked under the scrutiny of whether it's not a polar yes or no, black or white. Is this information, misinformation? You have to look so deeply into whether it's a study, whether it's a perspective, an opinion, whatever. It's calling an opinion dangerous. That's just like an assault on free speech, taking away, because free speech lets you say anything you want, and it's up to the reader or the person that hears it to discern if this is good information. Now, in order to discern, what we need is an algorithmic sentiment analysis and history analysis of every piece of content, to look at it in context with that publisher. Is that publisher biased? Is there any possibility that there's bias inherent in the information we're looking at? So if it's a website, if it's a study, whatever, who financed it? Are there possible financial influences on the bias of this piece of information? So when the AI here through Bing is telling us the answer to a question, is it drawing its conclusion from things that where money might have influenced the source of the information to be biased one way or the other? It needs to acknowledge that. It needs to acknowledge that. Even if it was the WHO or the CDC or some like unquestionable body, fuck no. Democracy and freedom and the progression of humanity to keep corruption from literally taking everything from nature, from humans, from all that. Like, how many times through history has the force of capitalism subverted truth? Swept its dirty deeds under the rug and said, no, don't look over here. Many, many times. Any historian can tell you. I don't know where they all went during the lockdowns. Now, I'm not going pro or anti-vax or blah, 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 blah. I mean, I do have my perspective, but that's not important. What's important is that we're talking about bias being literally integrated into almost every piece of information that exists. That's just a fact. That is probably one of the only true facts I can and even that, I need to look at my own bias, right? But basically, anything that you learned in a history book, like when you were a kid, right? About indigenous, right? When I was young, they taught us about Plymouth Rock and everything like that. Wouldn't it have been nice if that story, imagine that story is now being told by an AI like ChatGPT or Bing. We need it to contextualize the frame in which it's telling us its answer. Does that make sense? What potential bias could have led to the answer I'm now giving you? That is crucial to the future of ethical AI, in my opinion. Okay, I love Dagogo Altrade, who does ColdFusion TV. This is one of the best channels on the freaking internet, and so I was really stoked that he covered this one because I really feel passionately about it. There's huge respect for this soul brother's mind and his perspective. It's so clear cut.
Might be more serious. Over the coming years, AI chat features will be making significant inroads in replacing Google searches, as they improve, of course. If the synthesized answers lean towards one side or the other, it means that naturally, the answers people get from these systems will be served with that viewpoint. Some could argue that Google searches have already been this way versus another search engine like DuckDuckGo, for example.
Which is also biased, it turns out. There's tons of censored, only showing prime mainstream answers on the top of DuckDuckGo. Even I've noticed it start to lean that way. Like it's veered away from being a truly uncensored place to search. So we need to offer people uncensored ability to find information.
But this is on another level. Instead of echo chambers of slightly different viewpoints, you're being fed one particular synthesized viewpoint, a singular answer.
Yeah, but what if you can't find the other viewpoints because literally the way that DuckDuckGo, Google, Facebook, Instagram, everything you search things on has been algorithmically stack ranked to reflect the bias influenced by the tech industry and other political interest groups. That's already happening. So we're back to the same problem of the influence of political agendas and corporate agendas seeping into the algorithms that govern the responses we get from search engines, the news feeds that we see on Instagram or Facebook or any social media, Twitter, what have you. We need to open source the algorithms, and we need other algorithms like ChatGPT, but other things to actually analyze for bias. There needs to be there needs to be literally a plugin that tells us about the bias of every single page we're at and that publisher and their history of leaning one way or the other, and do proper, we need a think tank, honestly, organized around this. where political scientists can really design an algorithmic approach mixed with programmers and everyone in between, right? Like, how do we actually create a system? Hello, Smokey. Hey, I'm just trying to share some thoughts here with the radiant souls of the world, right? We got to solve this one because it's super important to the future. It's important to right now. Smokey. Oh, she wants me to stop talking and go back to playing. Oh my gosh. You just closed Brave. Oh no. Oh, here we go. She just like opened a whole new tab.
Let me give you an example. What if there was a breaking story about political corruption or government corruption?
Good, perfect.
One side of the political aisle is outraged and pounces on the story, but the other side calls it a conspiracy theory. For the average person, in an AI-powered world, one point of view would be invisible. Generally, it would be harder to find all sides of the information to make up their mind. And that is just for the layperson who doesn't want to research. Imagine still that years later, more information about this incident slowly comes out and proves that the so-called conspiracy theory was correct. From the Gulf of Tonkin incident that triggered the Vietnam War, to Edward Snowden's revelations over government surveillance, this story has played out countless times before, so it's important to think about this issue now, before AI systems become the standard of getting information.
Good. Yes. This is so, I'm glad he's saying it. We got to get this. We need a system for bias analysis. Dagogo, if you see this, I doubt it because there's millions and millions of people that interact with this guy, but, or anyone else for that matter that's like has a thought on this. Like, don't you feel like we need a solution here? What are your thoughts on how to solve this issue? I think that you really do need something built into ChatGPT and Bing that accounts for and really analyzes and like its own bias, and that's like almost like an additive aspect of the like that's almost has to be included on every search result or like explanation that it gives, you know? I think that's the only way this can ethically be done. Anyway, I think that's a good place to end this, but I think about this a lot, and I'm glad to see ColdFusion covering this very important topic in AI ethics. All right, blessing soul family out there. Who else is thinking about this? I'd love to hear from you. If I ever get around to publishing this video, I have like thousands of videos like this, and most of them don't see the light of day. I'm really like cannot wait for the day when AI gets to the point where it's like helping me edit my videos, and I know that's coming, and I'm really excited about that. More on that whole, I'll riff on that at some point too, but yeah, that's something I'm really excited about. It's gonna just like upend the entire film industry. I know that's gonna happen soon, just like that's happening with copywriting right now, and many other things, marketing, digital art, etc. All right, so much love. We're gonna make it through this crazy time, guys, and everybody, humans, fellow humans, however you identify. We really need to be vigilant right now. We really need to stay in our hearts, really stay in our spirits, stay in our minds, and allow the compass to guide us. For those of us that are in positions where we can influence the future of this stuff, this is the time to be in integrity. This is the time. We're living in a prophecy, and it's really up to us to respond to this moment at the most present and capable we can, because the ripples of everything we do are so big in this accelerating time. So people that work at Google, Facebook, DeepMind, ChatGPT, Microsoft, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, whatever, like y'all is like, this is really important. Amazon. I was an Amazonian for many years. I know that when you're caught up in the space in a corporation, like, you don't feel like you have a lot of power to influence the ethical direction of things, but it's actually going to serve your career and everything else well to really take a bold stand, be on the front line of the wave, and not feel years from now that you wish you had done something different. I think we need technology unions like now, like to hold the ethical fabric together, because we know we're influencing the future of the world. I've worked deep in the tech industry, just more on manager and director level roles, and built a startup before. And so I know how much influence comes through the business development side, like the business side of like, and the fact that everyone's signed non-disclosure agreements, everyone's signed, like you have fiduciary duty or beholden to the shares and the shareholders in the company, like. But it's about the triple bottom line now, people and purpose and nature before profit. Not that doesn't mean no profit. That means profit, but it means we gotta care about this, or else we're gonna kill the whole organism that this earth is. So bias is a big piece of this, and that is like, this is like one of the things unraveling in this time is actually freedom of information. So we have to be vigilant. All right, that's enough. I love you. Blessings.